You're tuned in to the MtG Cable cast, where they cover Magic, the Gathering finance. All right? You don't know about it? You're tuned in right now and get ready to learn some shit. Buckle your seatbelts and light a blunt and get ready for the MtG Cable cast. Starring Reptar and Thirsty, them onion head motherfuckers.
Alrighty, guys, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabalcast. And this week we're taking a look at something that somehow we haven't covered before, which, granted, a world where the internet exists, seemed a little odd to us. So that is the importance of an online buy list. And not just the importance of an online buy list, but why it's important for a vendor and why it's important and what it can look like for an LGS. So with that, let's get it taken away.
So for a vendor, it's pretty straightforward. The first thing, and probably the largest thing, is that it's an easy and consistent product acquisition method. You don't really have to, once you place your orders to distro, go out and try and source anything additional, as long as there's not more demand than predicted, which does happen from time to time, and then you have to find more distro or just update your online buy list, because you're basically just going to be continuously restocking, and offering decent prices for that kind of churn helps you, keep backstock flowing. The next, and the one that I like the most, is name and brand familiarity. We know Star City Games, not just because of their online buy list and the fact that they've been around forever, but from their tournament series. That kind of branding is invaluable to any kind of just organization. They are word of mouth. When people talk about face-to-face games, they talk about face-to-face games as the Star City of Canada. Not one of Canada's premier vendors, not one of their premier TOs, not one of their premier just organizers, but is the Star City of Canada. That kind of branding just can't be understated. With that, though, comes the ability to kind of build a rapport with people via successful transactions on the buy. Players at this point in time can scour the internet looking for reviews, looking for what it's like to get even down to the nitty-gritty, like paid out by a company. How long does it take to get cash back? What does it look like? Is it a PayPal drop? Is it a check? What have you? And they will, based on rapport and effective word-of-mouth marketing, choose the vendor they're going to work with. So this familiarity that you can build and this rapport through successful transactions, incredibly important to you. And the other thing is that as vendors can go out, LGSs don't often do so. If you sell to me online, you're probably also going to be browsing my booth at an event, which is also incredibly powerful when you're there, when you're at an event. You have a captive audience. You want people who know you to shop at you. You want people who don't know you to shop at you. So to do that, your buy list needs to stand out. Your return shoppers are fantastic. They're going to come back to you all the time, regardless of where you are. Yeah. And when people see that line, because of these successful transactions that you've built, they're going to shop at you as well. And that online to offline transaction is just fantastic. I mentioned return customers. That is also another reason for an online buy list. People often shop just on the sale, which is perfectly fine. But when you also give them the opportunity to sell their cards back to you, that helps build brand loyalty. It increases the number of positive transactions you can have with somebody. The number of touch points as an organization you can have with your customers means the better rapport you can build with them, the stronger their foundation, the better the word of mouth advertising you can pick up. Return customers, again, key. And these successful transactions that you can build on the sale, fantastic. On the buy, even better, because again, that's multi-touch point attribution. It's amazing. The other thing that return customers, I don't want to say often enjoy, but kind of succumb to, is credit. When your buy list is decent and your credit percentage is, at or above rate, that keeps shoppers in our ecosystem. And that's what we want. We want, that captive audience that I mentioned before. We want people to come back to us. It kind of stinks when you're just looking to sell high. You end up with credit that you can remove from an ecosystem. and sell to somebody else at a number. Think like Puka points. I think ABU credit can be resold. I think Card Kingdom credit can be resold.
Star City too, but you have to convert it to a gift card. But it can still be sold.
Yeah, and that has its own rate and its own cash out options, right? That doesn't keep people in your ecosystem, but that's fine because sometimes that can be seen as a little bit predatory. So having that out is fantastic, but keeping that ecosystem churning is also incredible for your business. It allows people to sell out of one game and buy into another completely if that's what they want to do. It is just easy, easy, easy. And then the last thing that I've mentioned a number of times is word of mouth marketing. When you offer good prices, people will do a chunk of your marketing for you. They will go out of their way to talk about the transactions that they've had with you. Check Twitter for references for TOA. You know, people will go out of their way to talk about that. They will go out of their way to dunk on Troll and Toad on Reddit. It's just the way it is. That's how things operate now. That's
years later, even though they're out of the vertical, they're still doing it.
Yeah, those are great examples of both positive and negative word of mouth marketing, and both of those are incredibly important. When you have negative, you have to triage, and it's very difficult because that means you have to go back and try and build those positive relations. You have to go back and like mea culpa to your clients, mea culpa to the population at large. It is very difficult, but that online buy list does help with word of mouth when you offer good pricing because that's what you become known for. Star City's online buy list, poopy for a very long time, and that's what they became known for. But because they had their tournament series, they had a captive audience. They had people there that wanted to deal with them. They kind of subverted that. They were able to kind of dip their toes in both sides here. And the power of the online buy list basically can help shape these organizations. You see people start from basically backpacking and turn into store owners via the power of an online buy list. And that's kind of just how I'm going to segue and throw it to you as the LGS side of things.
Yes. So before I start, I did want to piggyback on one thing you said, and that was store credit and how it keeps people in the ecosystem. One of the most amazing things I have ever seen at an event was when I was working at Miniature Market, someone came up and traded in for credit. It was immediately added to their web store profile, and they ordered singles from the warehouse.
Yes.
And that is such a huge tool that I wish more vendors took advantage of. And we had people come up and use their credit at the booth.
Yes.
And it's huge.
I think face-to-face always did that because they're international. But the one time I noticed it happen was at Vegas because it happened enough times and there were enough people from Canada coming to Vegas that they also brought orders for people.
Yeah.
And Face is a booth that will almost always have internet. So they have the ability to do just that. Like that moment that person can take their credit and buy something on the website. Like we talked about this before, quick tangent, which is also anecdotal. At that Vegas, everybody was just running up the price on Valks on Buylist.
Yeah.
Like Valk was just running away, just constantly updated on Buylist. And we had none on-prem. They were all on the website. We were buying them all for the website whenever we could get them. And people would immediately sell their cards to us, go to the website, and buy the Valks that we would list there from the credit that we input on the website. It doesn't happen a lot, and you're right. It is fantastic to be able to do that and churn it around because it lets you kind of walk into the room like we've talked about on a Friday, dump, go home, back before your buddies come over for Commander and just put in a bunch of singles for next week.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's really nice. It's a huge option.
Yeah.
So I actually looked at this not necessarily as what an online website buy list looks like, but there's two things that I kind of explored for an LGS, one of which I'm actually going to get into depth with and one of which I'm going to go over briefly. And the first one is Card Conduit. That is an online buy list portal where you upload your buy list and then people send cards to them and they disperse them to the buy lists. It's incredibly easy, requires no overhead really outside of the buy list money, and you receive your cards sorted and organized and conditioned already. So that's something cool. That's huge.
Yeah.
The other one that I think every LGS can benefit from is a Discord buy list. And the reason I say a Discord over a website is effectively when you're an LGS, you are catering to your community.
Yep.
You are catering to your players. You want your storefront to look good for the players. Mm-hmm. And a website is frankly a little faceless. Obviously, there are tons of LGSs that have websites, but when you were starting out and you were trying to get that community involvement going, I think Discord is a place to be because you are actually interacting directly with your community there. You are saying, hey guys, we need these cards. You interact with us and you see what kind of value we bring to you. Try to bring some value back in. And I think that's huge because one of the big things about having a community in an online buy list, as you touched on for vendors, is your retention is huge. Because you can now in the Discord post your hot list. Hey guys, this is what we're buying at premiums this week. Someone comes in and sells it to you. You can shout them out in the Discord and say, hey, this stuff is going out in the case all of a sudden. And that's huge because then they feel like they're involved in the shop's success. It gets them to buy into it. And it also allows you to give direct feedback to people. Like if someone responds with, hey, your number seems a little low on this, you can tell them why, or you can say, you're right, I will fix it. And that's something that when you're dealing with a hobby that largely is community driven, goes a long way because that kind of transparency, that kind of responsiveness is huge.
Yeah.
And then, players A, B, and C are suddenly involved in your weekly churn of singles because they know, hey, I saw this on the hot list for $12 and TCG's $14 on it right now. I pulled it in a draft. I'm going to go right over and sell it to the store. Or I've got it in my binders and I want a draft. I'm going to take it right over to the store. And it's a huge opportunity for you to advertise because you can tune it around your weekly events. I know some stores that literally on Tuesday, which is their Star Wars Unlimited night, they update their Star Wars Unlimited buy list. On Wednesdays, which is Legacy, they post a Legacy hot list because they know the players coming in that day.
So bring it with you. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a way for you to curate your buy list and buy practices to the community so that they feel like they're being further rewarded for engaging with you. And I think that's just a huge opportunity. Plus, it gives you an opportunity to cross-market games in one space.
Okay.
Because most websites for large vendors, admittedly, Troll's an example. Their Pokemon's in one area, Magic's in another, Star Wars, everything's separated that way. Whereas in a Discord, you can click through in 30 seconds and see a bunch of games. Yeah. And realistically, most players coming in play multiple games. So I may be coming in for Pokemon tonight, but I know I saw on your Magic hot list that this card I have is more, so I'm going to bring that in as well.
Yeah.
And it gives you so much opportunity to market with your community and engage your community and get feedback and see what they want. Yep. Because look, you're coming to us and you're buying all of the Shocklands we get in. Now we know we can pay more for them because we'll sell them right away. So, the shop is actually going out of their way to give me what I need as a player, as a community. And that goes a long way towards getting your goodwill.
Yep.
Go ahead.
The community engagement that you can get from Discord is everything that people wanted Facebook to be, but never became. And that's just straight up what's happening. And then the cross-game engagement you get, like you were discussing, is fantastic. I don't need to know when shadowless base Pokemon come in to my store because I have to walk by that case to get to the play space. But it's cool it would be cool to see if they posted buy lists for stuff like that because I got a bunch sitting in a closet. I would eventually move it if it hit a price I'd like.
Yeah.
We talked about this in the pre-show. My store doesn't do online buy lists; it's all in person, which is fine. The cases just kind of run themselves, and for the most part, they're stocked by box breaks. And the way they do their community engagement instead of buy lists, and you and I have never talked about this, so you get to hear this in the raw, is about a week or two when they know their allotment for sealed. They send out solicitations for in-person busting and sorting. Mm-hmm. And you take a 4 or an 8 hour shift, Friday, Saturday, and or Sunday, and you make a wage in store credit.
Oh,
and
interesting.
You sort to their methodology, and then those singles get put into store stock. They don't do hot listing or buy listing through Discord. It is all done in store at the buy station where the hot lists are just kind of floating around. But the Discord server instead serves as a community hub for the entirety of the store. So if you're there for tabletop RPGs, right, TTRPGs, you're going to see the announcements for Magic because it's in the generic announcements channel. Yeah. They have hooks to, I think, the store Insta. I don't know if they do Twitter. So you're going to see the new products that come in for anything else, photographed and showcased like you would see it for social, right?
Yeah.
And so they've chosen to kind of move away from buy listing inside Discord and just kind of treat it more like a community hub where the employees are there to answer questions, be friendly, etc., and then push people into the store. That's the method that they chose.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't think anybody at the store actually does any kind of category specialization like we've talked about in the past that you would have at a normal vendor or LGS. Everybody is there mainly to take cards out of the case and then punch numbers into the POS system. So they're cross-trained, but they are not category specialists. When it comes to Buylist, they generally bring in somebody from the warehouse who does the online buy list for the vendor that exists in the same space, Card Titan.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it's the buy listing is done. There are people that go back and forth between Card Titan and the LGS to do that. You don't have to set up an appointment or anything like that. You just kind of walk in and do what you want. But I think that's also part of the reason why. It's just they want to keep that Card Titan influence outside of the LGS space. And I know this is a unique case, but this is the anecdotal stuff that I have.
Yeah. I also think the other nice thing you can do with a Discord is you can literally give your in-store community like early access to pre-sales.
Yeah.
And that's another way to engage the community that's meaningful and is a lasting positive impact. And the other thing that I think is incredibly good about Discord and Discord buy lists is almost exactly what you said. It is what everyone thought Facebook would be, but it never ended up being. And the reason that's relevant is because you do need to grow your community. But thankfully, all of these games have qualifying systems for events. You can run case tournaments, 1Ks, 5Ks, whatever the case is, to get a ton of people in.
Yep.
You can invite them to your Discord. Then they're on your buy list too.
Yeah.
And especially, being in flyover country, a lot of people know the stores where events happen within 4 to 6 hours of where they are. They know what stores have better buy lists. They know their travel plans when they're going to a PTQ or regional qualifier or whatever they're called. Or when you're running a 4K or a case tournament, whatever the case is, you can then push a hot list out for that event to the people that will be traveling in.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, people that aren't in your normal ecosystem but do travel for large events, because there are a ton of them, can come in with their stuff to hotlist now and get some churn going in the case. And that's something that, especially if you're not at the point where you're traveling to events yet, is incredibly important, because that's one of the ways that you can kind of bridge that gap and still have direct involvement with your community, because those people, after 3 or 4 PTQs at the same LGS, there's a store in Kansas City, Collector's Cash, where the joke is they haven't fixed their toilet in 15 years. People sort of recognize a brand and they associate with it. So I know I'm going to a PTQ in Liberty, Missouri. Great. In that case, I'm going to check their Discord for the hot list stuff that I should bring. And that gives you not quite an event reach, which, obviously is completely different because you're flying across the country and people are flying in from all over to go to the event. But it does let you expand your buy list and open it up to mail-ins from people.
Yeah.
Where, all right, cool, I'll send you PayPal, or you know what, do you want credit? Because we've got a website. And then you can start directing traffic that way so that they can start getting stuff there as well. It's to the point where the store I used to work at, there were some people that were showing up for the Pauper events that we were holding so regularly that they lived 3 hours away, but they just bank their credit because they knew at the next event they would spend it on something else.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now you have a captive customer base that's not even local, but you have cultivated this kind of loyalty to them because you're advertising these big events, because they're in the Discord, they get these pre-sales. Yeah. That it's a way for you to get further engagement with the community, further word of mouth marketing, and return customers for what is effectively doing what you're doing for your immediate community anyways.
Yep.
Without having to change your business model. And that is a huge value to an LGS, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. And from the LGS perspective too, there also comes a point where somebody is so engaged with the store and so in tune with what the store does and offers that they no longer need to look ahead to see like what's on the buy list, etc. When they come in for an event they know they're going to play in, they know they're going to enjoy, they'll bring what they want to sell with them anyway. They won't have to look forward to it. And they'll start talking to their friends, which it goes back to the word of mouth marketing. But like,
Yeah.
for the modern, the legacy events, the vintage events that I've judged at my
Yeah.
LGS, I see the same people all the time because they travel hours to get here to play in these events because they know the store, they know what the store runs, how the store operates, they like the store, etc. And so they will bring what they need to play the event. And if there's anything they want to sell because they know they're going to take credit from the event, then they'll just bring that too and take that bankroll and just go through the cases. And I think like that kind of stuff is also incredibly important too. You mentioned the flyover stuff. It's different, for you being in mid-Atlantic. There's a ton that goes on. We have like 4 star cities in a matter of like 2 or 3 hours drive this year, right? For me, it's super easy.
Which is pretty great.
Yeah. We had NYSE trials, so we get people from all over the place coming in to play those. But they came to the store to play this event, not just because it was a way to grind into a $500 event at like 60 or 80 bucks per pop, but because they knew the store, they knew it was going to be a well-run event, they knew what the store was going to have inside the cases, etc. And those people that top aided grazed the cases at the store. They took their credit and they grazed those cases. Like, it is fantastic. It's a way to also extend the reach, like you said, of your singles to people who aren't from the area, so you can churn through the cases. We've talked about the inverse of knowing your audience when you go fly to events.
Yeah.
So this helps those cards, get taken away. Sometimes you'll have people that just come in and backpack with friends. They come in with the list of like, this is what I need for my area, and they'll work through the cases and take that stuff from you and bring it to their ecosystem too, working off the hot list that you provided, right? And you just churn cards through various ecosystems like that. Like, not really thinking about it, Discord is an incredible tool for the LGS in ways I never really honestly expected.
Yeah, and it was something that I've seen a lot more stores branching into, and I've even seen some of the like Grand Prix Star City level vendors that have LGSs have also started doing.
Yeah,
because it does let you cultivate that in-store community, and that's obviously important as an LGS. Because frankly, for me, if I could vend or have an LGS, I would vend all day because it's easier.
Mm-hmm. But
the LGS requires that community engagement that I do love, and this is another way for you to do that and make it profitable.
Yeah, for sure. And it's low impact. It's as good as you want to make it. So there's a lot of freeform elements to it, to Discord on the whole. And before we just spin off and talk about that for a while, anything else you want to go over before picks?
No, let's take it away with picks.
All right. I want you to go first because if you go last, it seems self-serving to me.
That's fair. So I am picking something that you said was underhyped in our OTJ episode, and that is Cabal Profiteering Mare. So 3 mana for a 2/4, doing fine at that point. Whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your opponent's control, for each of them create a tapped token that's a copy of it. This ability triggers only once each turn. Whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. So the second part of this is kind of whatever, frankly. The first part of this, though, is really good in EDH and any times tokens rear their ugly head in a 60-card format. Now, this is a card that has 403 listings as of recording, and you have to get to like page 30 before you hit $2, which seems almost insurmountable, except interestingly enough, and this is one of the reasons I'm picking it, when you look at sellers with 4 or more quantity, there are only 66, down from 87 a week ago, which is a pretty big amount for that, because that means of 404 listings, only 66 of them have 4 or more copies. So literally 4/5 of them do not. They're 4 or less, which means that at the current rate of sell-through, which is about 20 to 30 copies a day, we're going to get there pretty quick on when this could potentially be a $3 to $4 card. Now, one of the interesting things about this that made me a little bit skeptical for this card in particular, but I believe in it, is this set seems to have somehow already settled at a price point, and a lot of these cards are more money than a standard set should be with collector boosters. For that reason, I think I was at first cautious, but I think this is actually a very strong pick, because this is something that's going to end up in a lot of bulk binders or bulk boxes. Yeah. You'll probably be able to pick it up pretty easily as draft chaff. Because, I mean, it's what, 3 rares per play pack or however they're drafting now? I don't really know.
I think it's 2, and then there's the...
Maybe a foil for a third?
No, it's the insert set,
Oh,
prosperity
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, the prosperity stuff, right.
I think that's the way it goes. I'm trying
yeah.
to think of the packs I've opened, and the one I have sitting next to me has 3 rares but no prosperity card in it.
Oh, fair.
A big vault, 2 regulars, I believe.
Yeah. So I think this card is great, obviously, because casual EDH is a thing. Casual EDH players love tokens.
Yeah.
This also counters Right of Replication in a very funny way if it's kicked, which I love.
That's true.
But the other reason I like this is because of relevant creature types, because Human and Advisor are obviously very relevant. Now, it wasn't too long ago, well, maybe it was like 10 years, where Voice of Resurgence was running all over Modern. That could happen again. There is a history of aggressively costed token cards existing in Magic.
Yeah.
It may happen in Standard. It may happen in Pioneer. It may happen in Modern. We do have Standard regional qualifier season going now with a Dallas event afterwards, which is Modern. So we may see something pop with MH3. I think this card is just really solid from a design perspective, and I will say this is, while it is selling through at an incredibly high rate, I think still more of a long-term haul in terms of what we're going to see with this.
Yeah.
Now, we may see a spike come Modern Horizons 3 because we don't really know much about it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of like weird tribal stuff going on all of a sudden because we want to make that good again. Humans is a tribe that's been relevant before and could use some more support. Maybe it happens there. That said, I'd be looking at a steady curve on this, probably about 8 to 12 months with about a 5 to 10% month over month, because I think more will hit the market than are now,
Okay.
but I don't think you're going to satisfy that momentum.
Yeah.
I also think that before too long here, Outlaws is just going to stop being opened because there is no reason for this set to continuously be opened with it not having serialized cards. I think that is probably one of the biggest selling points for this card and any other card in Outlaws of Thunder Junction for why it is a good pick. Because we're not going to have a bunch of this flooding out because of $1 million bounty, or because there's cool commander cards that are serialized to 500, or because there's Mishra's Baubles serialized and I can run those in Legacy, or whatever the case is.
Yep.
It just doesn't exist. So I think we may be looking at a little bit more longer term, yes, but this is something that at about $1.50 to $2, I'd be comfortable picking up 10 to 20 of no problem, because it could see play in 60 card formats,
Yep.
but it will definitely see play in EDH formats. And at the price point, because I don't think it ever hits above $10, you can unload 20 pretty quickly, especially at the momentum of 30 a day.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be too hard. So that's why I think it's solid.
Yeah. I said my piece on this card already, and I'm just waiting to see how Commander adopts this card. Like I said,
Because it will.
Yeah, like I said in my rundown, I think this kind of goes in more of, I don't think it's going to go in an Orzhov strategy. I see this more in like of an obs on taxes kind of thing,
Yep.
where you just want to ramp and you want to be able to punish some people for making tokens, and like, you know, you get your own copies, which is pretty sweet. And then you can also do some fun things in Obzon with like Beast Within and Generous Gift, where you just kind of force tokens upon people and trigger Cabal. You know, that's an easy thing to do, and I think it's fun and mischievous in ways that I don't think are really going to annoy people when it comes to playing Commander. So I'm just excited to see the long-term adoption of this card. I will say, though, before we continue, the price I did quote on this and another card last week, I read the Tix price and not the market price, so that is just a mea culpa on that one. I think I said this was like 7 or 70 cents last week, which was not too far off from the truth at that point, but it was definitely the Tix price and not the dollar price. For me, this week I'm pulling a card from my list from back in November, and we are going to Believe in the Cleave. And we are looking at Ember Cleave today. This is a legendary artifact equipment that costs 4 and double red. That is right, it costs 6.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It has flash and a an ability that says this spell costs 1 colorless less to cast for each attacking creature you control. So it basically has affinity for attacking creatures. When Embercleave enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. Cool. So it just ETBs and equips automatically. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample. And then the equip ability costs 3 generic. Now, I added this to my list in November of 2023. Card Kingdom was buying 29 at $3. They had 8 in stock at $8, and there were 277 listings on TCG Player for LP or better with a market price of $5.34. When I was taking my notes, Card Kingdom was buying 43 at $4.70. They had 7 for sale at $8.50. And there were 207 listings on TCG Player for a market price of $6.68. A couple days after taking my notes, Card Kingdom is now only buying 33 copies, but they're still buying at $4.70, which tells me that despite their restock on this, they believe they can churn through it enough that they do not need to lower the price because they have a back stock. And it also says that they are not churning through it fast enough that they have to raise the buy price on it just yet. So we're seeing Card Kingdom respect the audience they serve and understand the velocity of this card, but they're also projecting that the velocity will not increase over time. Yeah. So it is a little bit of a bummer, but I like the fact that it's just kind of flat like this. Usually when I take my notes and later on in the week, quantity is sent, what we see is a drop in price. And that means that Card Kingdom believes that they have more than sated the velocity on the card, and it will be a longer amount of time before they have to really re-engage with the card on their buy list. Now, looking at this card, when it comes to the Commander format, it is exactly what I said up top. We're here to believe in the cleave. Yeah. Pure and simple. On the whole, the requirements quote unquote necessary to play this card are pretty low. You have to play red. You want to win in combat. And you just don't try to attach this to a creature that has Lightning Greaves or Whisper Silk Cloak. That's it. Because those cards have Shroud or give Shroud, which means you just can't attach this. Now, this isn't a big dumb piece of equipment. It's a pretty tight piece of tech that offers 2 important keywords to end a game quickly: trample and double strike. When you look at EDH the majority of decks you see running this card are Equipment Matters decks where the commander or theme benefits from having equipment attached to creatures, offering various forms of value through triggers. And right behind that, though, are decks that just want to close the game via equipment, and these are more of your Voltron flavors of commander decks. And so that's a big difference between just gaining value from triggers versus just mushing you with one really tall creature. So it's cool to see it play in both. What appeals to me most about the Cleave is that it doesn't just have to live in those decks, though. Because this is an efficient game-ending spell, you can play this as any red deck that wants to win via combat, like I mentioned before. Pairing this with something like the Reaver Cleaver is incredibly powerful, and it's these kinds of alternate looks that also make this card really appealing. And for those that don't remember, the Reaver Cleaver is an equipment that generates treasures based on the amount of damage you do to your opponent in combat. It reads, and I'll bring this up on stocks real quick, 2 and a red, equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or a planeswalker, create that many treasure tokens, equip 3. Now,
that's insane.
It is. It honestly is. Now, the trample on this is redundant, but it doesn't really matter. We're just here to make a bunch of treasures when you combine your peanut butter and chocolate. Now, this is a powerful equipment with broad appeal, and generally speaking, something like this is always a great look. This kind of power and ubiquity is why Loxa and Warhammer held an actual price back when the Commander format started. Now that card's just been so outmodded, it's kind of crap. But we are applying lessons we learned back then to the cards we're seeing now because there's a pedigree in this. The timeline for this is kind of funny. So when I was using the script that I built for our patrons, I noticed that there were almost 200 copies in view at LP or better despite the fact that there are, I'm going to put the word only here in quotes, 216 listings. So what the hell is going on? Well, the Gaming Co. is anchoring this at $6.80 with 116 copies. That's what's going on.
Naturally.
So once that block is removed, though, this does shoot up and over $7 really quickly. It sells about, on average, between LP and near mint, about 12 copies per day, which means the block should be removed pretty soon. The math is like 10 days here. But if things do trend similarly for the next 2 months, we'll be able to churn these back around into TCG Player for $8 or more. So it's not a long hold, but it definitely is a hold to get past the Gaming Co., as seems to be the case. As I talked about with the Card Kingdom data, Buylist look to be lagging behind as people are pretty willing to sell their copies on the cheap, so I really wouldn't expect to be able to sell our copies to Buylist at any time in the year 2024, in all honesty. It's just going to be a really long hold on this. Reprint equity. This was reprinted on the list, so I don't think this is too egregious for a standard reprint again. There's a really good chance we're going to see it come back around when WotC wants the aggressive deck in a format to have Haymaker equipment. Right now, we are seeing the red aggressive deck play a lot of creatures and a smattering of spells to get the job done, relying on the prowess triggers. Embercleave does not lean into that. It leans into the equipment side of things. It's when you want like Rune Canter's Pikes, the swords, to do your heavy lifting in the aggressive decks within the format. I don't think we're too far off from that, but it wouldn't surprise me if this effect proves to actually be too much for standard, so we just do kind of see it live on the list. Could it make it into a Commander's supplemental product? I don't know. It is pretty clunky for a limited environment. Drafting this seems at odds with a set that doesn't have token synergy because you do need that attacking creature affinity.
Yeah.
And to me, this seems like a better look for a Commander deck, but we usually now don't get premier equipment like this in those decks. It's kind of stopped. I think, and I know...
Bone Splitter.
Well, we have like Blade of Selves.
Yeah.
That was first in a Commander set. Hammer of Nazan was first in a Commander set.
True, yeah.
And there was something that came out of the original Nahiri deck, the Mono White Planeswalker, but I can't quite remember what it is. We do get that from time to time, but those are all new cards. They're not upcycled cards. So it is something that I don't quite see happening when it comes to a reprint. So I think it really just kind of is the list or maybe another standard reprint. Even if that happens, though, that just puts more into the ecosystem. And this card was scarce when it came out, despite the fact that it was not a good deck. People just gobbled up this card then. They pushed back at standard rotation, or pushed back into the ecosystem at standard rotation, and now we're just kind of chewing through this. If you look at the stocks graph that I brought up, flat for a really long time, and we're finally seeing a little bit of movement recently. Buy quantity on this, I think I've got close to a play set of these because I pick them up from my LGS case whenever I see them, because as a Commander player, I do play red, I do enter combat, and I have more than one deck that wins via equipment. So having more is better, kind of like the Reaver Cleaver. You know, just we have Goblin, or not Goblin, we have Dockside Extortionist at home kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
For me, this card works. For a lot of casual players, this card works, as seen by the data on Rec. And overall, I really like this card in the long term. Like I said, short term, we can probably out this for like a 1.3 to 1.4x markup, easy. But we believe in the cleave over here.
Yeah, I love this card. I think it's the kind of thing that we'll see play in 60 card formats when cards like Goblin War Leader aren't popular, or when we get another kind of that effect.
Yep.
Like Legion Loyalist was another one. Like any of the red attacking matters, which is a very common theme.
Rabble
and when
Master,
Rabble Master, all that stuff. It's a common design trope that they go back to. It's very synergistic with that, and it's something that, you know, has already a history in Pioneer and Modern.
Yep.
So there have been archetypes in the past where this card has worked. And I may be mistaken, but I believe Embercleave is plane specific to Throne.
I don't know if it came in Throne. I don't know how Embercleave plays into the story of Throne, so I can't really speak to that. If that's what you're
I
getting
haven't
at.
read the story since like Throne came out, but I thought I remembered this being part of the story, even though it's not highlighted as a story spotlight card.
Okay.
So it maybe, if not, well, mea culpa.
Yeah.
I just think it's, it hits that casual equipment feel. It has the potential to spike a 60 card format.
Yep.
And it is, like you said, kind of this isn't the kind of thing they reprint regularly anymore. They don't go for this. It is Blade of Selves, a Blade of Many. It's all that kind of unique stuff. Champion's Helm. That's what they're putting in the commander decks.
Yep.
So I don't know when we would see a meaningful reprint of this card. And I do think now that we are starting to see upward momentum, it is only a matter of time before, barring the Gaming Co., obviously, these copies start to just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a really good EDH card that can have a $15 to $20 price point and still be good.
Yeah.
It can still have liquidity there. People will still buy it for their decks. And I think that's one of the reasons that I like this pick a lot.
Yeah. Even at a high price point, $10 plus, it still seems very feasible that people will enjoy this card because it is a game ending spell. It doesn't, I will glom onto the Craterhoof Behemoth is not how you should win in combat vibe until the day I die. This isn't Craterhoof. You can still deal with the creature. It's an appealing way to end the game. It's not overbalanced. You can respond to the trigger. You can remove the creature. Crap. You get rid of the equipment. Get rid of the cleave. It's fine.
Yeah.
Bounce it back or something. Juggle it. It doesn't matter. This is an appealing way to win a game. Win a game quickly. Win a game on theme. Win a game with vibes. It's just all around a great card. And $15 to end a game where nobody gets mad at you almost seems like a premier way to win a game.
Yeah.
So I like that aspect of the card as well. Embercleave is a card I'm going to lean on. I'm going to lean into some other equipment probably over time. We talked about the Mithril. There's a lot of stuff that people enjoy. We've got some stuff I think from Fallout that I'm going to talk about in time, and we're going to see some pretty cool stuff. But anything else about Bylists or Cabal or Embercleave before we sign out?
Nope.
All right, so for at MtG Cabalcast on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, and YouTube, I am at Halt, I am Reptar, you are...
At Damon_Thurston.
We'll see you next week.